Hi, my name is Betty Toussaint, and we're going to go right into our topic for the day, which is blended families. Now, blended families, for those of you all who are not familiar with the terminology, is when you have a new relationship, and that new relationship now involves a different children, and these children might be the biological or adoptive children of your new spouse. And so, or when you bring children into a relationship that is new, we call that a blended family. And so, I have a blended family. I have a son from a previous relationship. And when I got married, I had two additional children with my husband. And so we have a blended family. And blended families, they come with their own set of challenges, as well as some triumphs. Okay. And so today we're just going to talk about how to navigate the waters in a blended family in a healthy way. And so the first tip that I wanted to share with you as it relates to a blended family is one dealing with discipline. It's really important before everybody comes together to live under the same roof that the family, and before the family has a conversation about discipline, the two adults that are married need to have a conversation about discipline as well as the role of the other parent in the child's life. And so when it comes to discipline, we have to talk about who's going to do it, when is it going to happen, and the type of discipline that we are going to use. And that discipline needs to consider the relationship that the child has with the non biological parent, in addition, the age of the child, as well as the involvement of the child's biological mother or father in their lives, because all of those pieces come into play. And so, one of the things that often comes up as a family law practitioner is when the non biological parent or step parent tries to administer any form of discipline. It could be, I'm taking your device away, or I'm taking away your phone, or it could be the use of corporal punishment. One of the things that a step parent should not do is stop a child from communicating with the other parent during that parent's visitation time or communication time that is court ordered. Even if it is your house, even if that child knows that, look, you're not supposed to be on the phone right now because you're grounded or you did something at school and this is the punishment. If there is a court order in place that gives that child visitation or communication time via FaceTime or WhatsApp or any type of video conferencing with that parent, you can't take away that child's device if it means that that child is not going to be able to communicate with the other parent. If you do that, that other parent that has a court order that says that, look, this is the time that I'm supposed to be talking to my child, and the step parent is now interfering with that, then you can be sure that what's called a motion for contempt is coming. And so I strongly encourage parents, step parents, do not take away devices from a child, especially when it is time for that child to communicate with the other parent using video conference or an iPad or some type of device that is used for communication, or the phone. But typically, especially when your child is a teenager, that's the first thing that you think to grab to punish or to discipline the child for unwanted behavior. And so the other thing that I would recommend is to make sure that when it comes to when the discipline happens, I would recommend that the biological parent be present for any type of consequences that are about to be handed down to the parent. That serves as a safeguard for the step parent to make sure that if, let's say, for instance, the child, claims that they were abused or hit, you want to be sure that the biological parent is present, and that you have that parent's full support when it comes to the discipline that needs to happen with that child. Something to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind when you have a blended family is that you have to, if you are the step parent, you have to learn how to develop a relationship with that child, and you're going to have to let that child lead that relationship in their own time. You can't force it. For instance, you can't force the child to start to call you daddy or dad or mom, especially if they have a parent that is involved in their life. They may not feel comfortable calling you mom or dad, and their parent might not feel comfortable having their child call the step parent mom or dad. And so you have to consider the child and their desires, their needs, and where they are in their relationship with you, and their acceptance of the relationship that you now have with their parent. In addition to that, as the step parent, you have to also be mindful that that child is now trying to figure out how they fit into this new family. And a lot of times they may feel threatened that their mom or dad is now going to spend all of their time with the new husband or the new wife, and less time with them. And so that's something to consider. And one of the things to do to be proactive is to make sure that you set aside some quality time with your child, to make sure that your child knows that even though you are in a new relationship, it doesn't mean that there's going to be less time with you. And so having time set aside where the two of you can still do things together is something that I definitely recommend. And also letting your child feel like it's always a safe place to be able to share and talk about their feelings, about the new relationship, about the other parent, but come up with some rules about the communication. For instance, one of the things that I would tell my oldest son is that you can be upset because, in terms of the emotions that you feel your emotions. However, the boundary that we're going to set is that you will not disrespect my spouse in my presence or in his presence. And so you can't, call him out of his name. You can't, yell and scream, when you're speaking, to him. There still needs to be a level of respect, irrespective of how you feel about the other person. And so laying some ground rules about how we're going to communicate is really important, and it needs to happen in the very beginning. The other piece to consider is when you have children with your new husband or your new wife. When you have additional children outside of the child that you have, there's again a whole nother set of emotions that you have to consider, because your child that was here first is going to feel like you have your perfect family now, or that they don't necessarily feel a part of the new family. And so when that happens, I strongly recommend, and even before it happens, think about getting a family therapist to help you through these new territories, this new type of family that you are creating, so that you have some strategies to deal with the emotions of your child that was here before, and your spouse, your new spouse, also has strategies not only to deal with your child but also to deal with you, because when that relationship with your child and the your new spouse isn't the way, it's not going the way that you would want it to go, you start to take sides, and you start to do that very quickly. And so it's really important to learn how to stand up for what's right and not just take sides because of the relationship. And so those are some tips and some things to consider when you do have a blended family, and respecting that your rules in your home is going to be different compared to the rules in the other parent's home. And so your child is having to be the one to bounce back with this parenting style this weekend, and then another parenting style in another home. It's a lot for them to deal with, to navigate. And so you're going to have a whole lot of grace, a lot of mercy when it comes to dealing with the changes in your child's behavior when they are going from one home to the next. Because, again, different parenting styles, different individuals in the home, and then that child is still trying to deal with their own emotions, especially if you're talking about a divorce or a child that is a teenager that had a very strong bond with the other parent that they no longer get to see on a regular basis. And so these are just some tips to consider, some things to discuss with your spouse, and also with the entire family, as you all start to create something new, different, and beautiful. Thank you for listening.